attachments.
You could be a blessing, but right now you're just a curse. If you don't understand me.
Those images, said by people anonymously, people said not to react to comments like these, but the only reason I felt anything reading these comments was because it had me thinking of a lot. To me, attachment is needing someone like chasing for oxygen. To me, attachment is being bound. When those with mental issues think of chains, they name those chains after depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. When I thought of chains, I thought of earthly desires, happiness, music, art, caring, and temptations in general. When I thought of who locked those gauntlets around my wrists, friends came in mind. Friendships made in younger ages are pure, genuine, and honest. Growing up, I wasn't entirely close to religion, but slowly my parents were sharing stories and verses, establishing the framework of my life. I remember every night before going to sleep, I'd have to recite a prayer, but I never questioned what it meant. It went something like, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Let's go over some of my closest friends. Just an idea, not all of them. My first friendship started in kindergarten, and I had a low-key crush on her, something I wasn't able to understand. She wasn't the only friend I made either, but she moved away that same year. My other best friend stuck by me, but then I moved. From an early age, I learned friends move on, and so did I. Imagine being strapped to a chair, full of life and feeling giddy because of curiosity at a young age. Someone walks over to you, giving a feeling off that you can trust them, so you trust them with your life. They say, "Close your eyes, sweetheart," and you give in. Next thing you know, you're in a slumber. My next friendship was made in 4th grade when I moved. It was a friendship unlike many I've ever made. In this slumber, this was all a dream to me. Someone was actually talking to me while others stared from afar. This one felt so real. This one lent a hand, pulled me out of my personal bubble into hers, showing me something I've never seen before. Her world. She showed me her friends, what she liked, and it was all so strange for me. Then I brought this up to my parents, completely happy with making a friend, until something shot into my veins from sitting in that chair. My mother didn't see a friend, she saw a Christian first. I wasn't aware of other religions in the world, let alone knew my own religion well. She started to educate me thoroughly, afraid I'd give in to another religion. The next day, I wasn't the same me. I gave weak smiles to play it off. I tagged along but said nothing and let her words run around me every day, until I snapped. I told my friends what my religion was about and how strange theirs were. My friends were taken aback by this conversation and they bit back. This ended up with a clash and me separating myself from them. Those kafirs, I thought to myself. Although part of me thought being away from them was the best decision, another part of me sympathized for them. They were being misled by their families and they were at risk of being in hellfire. That hurt my heart to see caring, kind, and honest people burning in fire. My best friend snapped me out of my thoughts while she approached me to the swing set I was in alone. She lent that hand again, and I was hesitant. She was the bigger person. She pulled me into her world again, even though I was the worst. She showed me acceptance, tolerance, and love. A few years passed, one of my friends moved away, and that hurt me. It hurt worse than the first time, and it was so strange. My parents didn't like how I was reacting to this, so they reminded me of what really mattered. Father with his education over friends lecture, and mother with her friends are not real lecture. I understood, but people started to pull me into their lives during 7th grade. I did well in academics like my family wanted, but I also did well socially. Some of them actually cared about my birthday, that they wrapped my locker with balloons on it. They sang the melody to me in classes, which always left me embarrassed. And then, when I got hurt in gym, one girl pulled me to her and made me dance with her to lift my spirits. I was introduced to all these wild colors of different worlds that year, but that was the last time I got to see any of that. Now imagine this person strapped in a chair, forced into a deep slumber with a mask around their face, limited breathing and unknowing of what was going on around them. The summer after, I followed religion heavily and started to see that my life needed a revamp. I took down baby pictures of mine that hung on the wall. I stopped drawing. I prayed as much as I could because it was summer. I made it my mission to memorize as much as possible. I didn't have any friends to talk to back then. I didn't listen to music at all, and I stopped playing my viola during that summer. My life was just simple, and that was all it had to be. The following year in school, I stopped talking to people and only focused on education. I would roll my eyes at those who gloated their luxuries, thinking that they won't see the luxuries of the hereafter. I would avoid boys at all costs. I had to be in orchestra for extracurriculars, but I asked if I could just ditch school to pray. I felt immense guilt for not doing so. I asked, why did I have to go to school in the first place if religion was the first priority? I hated life in general, if I were honest with you. Then because of some dumb boy, I ended up finding myself in Minecraft. Next friendship took place in a community before serving Hypixels. I met someone who was kind and genuine, which was so refreshing in this toxic community. She welcomed me into her life, reminding me of what it was like to understand another lifestyle. A roller coaster ride, introducing me to the light of her life and her darkness. We had a connection, a bond so strong that it was like having a sister from across the country. Then, when that darkness became overwhelming, she suddenly left me there. I didn't know what to do. Leave this darkness or wait for her? Then, her neighbor walked into this darkness, asking me to call him over Skype and ask that we go to Hypixel. That was the first time I went to this server, July 31st of 2013. The darkness we were in suddenly brewed a storm with the information he was giving, but it wasn't a crazy storm, yet. He informed me of the loss she was enduring, asking what we could write in a letter to her. With time, the storm became crazier. She was dealing with paralysis and her brother was in a coma. We were trying to help her through, reminding her that we were there for her, but unfortunately with distance. It was becoming increasingly difficult. I was so worried about her. A few months passed and the storm slowly went away. She was slowly getting her spirit back. She was finding peace and being with us, and it was comforting. However, I finally quit that community and decided to be more active in Hypixel after some time, just needing a bit of a break from all the drama going on there. A month later, and that storm returned and became a hurricane, powerful winds that could tear anything apart. I was told that she committed suicide. It was like that bond diminished and I was left in the storm. I couldn't believe any of this. I wanted it to be wrong. I wanted it to be false. Except it wasn't. The first thing I thought of was looking at my janamas, the rug Muslims would use to pray upon. I prayed and I prayed. Suicide is one of the greatest sins that will undeniably bring you to hell, repeating the same thing infinitely. How could someone as kind and genuine as her undergo something like that? It was painful and tearing my mind apart. I was doing poorly in academics and I couldn't talk to anyone about this. Because of friends I made on Hypixel, I got through it, but at the time, I wouldn't have noticed it. Then, another suicidal case happened while I was a junior helper with another best friend of mine. She was considering it, and I didn't want it to happen again. I wanted to help, and I made sure to be present in her life as much as possible. I didn't want her to suffer, while I prayed for my other friend, hoping that she doesn't have to deal with the punishment that was determined. Fortunately, she's still here today. But because of that, I found myself going into religion, trying to purify my mind of any negative thoughts, blaming the devils and praying that these devils would just go away. I was fighting my own battle with other demons haunting me, cackling at me, telling me that these are not friends. They're just tests. They're testing you, trying to push you to consider one of the greatest sins. This reminded me of my mother's lectures. Friends are only those you say hi and bye to, not those you give your heart to. She would say if you give your heart, then they will crush it and throw it to the ground, leading you astray. I couldn't trust anyone. When I tried to give an idea of what my parents were like, my friends went against my parents, which had me defensive. I'd say these parents are perfectly fine. It's their form of discipline. I realized I couldn't be open about them, so I bottled these things up once again. I was insulted to hear people speak badly of my parents, not realizing that what I said must have sounded like something parents shouldn't do to discipline kids. Nonetheless, it had me distancing myself from them. I made more friends, but these thoughts would always haunt me at night when I'm alone. I'd blame the devils because I was raised to believe that once the sun sets, the devils roam. So I tried to pin it all on the friends I made that weren't Muslims. I'd remember my Muslim friends who would date, curse, and do inappropriate things, realizing I was just going through this alone. Let's skip through to the recent friend group I made. The first friend was one I stayed in contact with over summer of last year. Despite the roller coaster ride I was bound to, she was on it with me. But she was dealing with different things. She found another friend who was on another roller coaster ride, and we met another friend who was in a love tunnel of death. I was a mess, but I didn't show it. At times I accidentally did say things that would get my friends like, "Excuse me?" For instance, when I once mentioned how I enjoyed seeing people function, how they put feelings into what they do, how interesting it must have been to be human. They looked at me and were like, "Are we just a part of an experiment?" I wasn't sure how to react. It was nighttime after all, a time when I'd get deep by accident, but I laughed it off. Yet it did bother me. Was that how I always saw friends? Not really. The moments I shared with my friends were raw and genuine. There were times when I really did feel like myself, and it was absolutely thrilling. No, the thoughts that made their way into my mind only occurred when I was alone, or when my parents would make an abrupt appearance into my life again. What made religion make an appearance into my life this time with this friend group then? First of all, I was confused with LGBT for a while. I'll go into that later, but to keep it short, at first I found no issue with same-sex couples until my mom spoke of lesbians as if it were a curse word, until my friends spoke of gays as if it were a curse word. I still didn't see the issue, and increasingly so when a friend of mine, who was Muslim and from Saudi, was a supporter of this community. Until Obama passed the law, and that encouraged my parents into speaking of the matter heavily, why being a homosexual was wrong, and why supporting them was wrong. Then it was like I felt another jolt into my body, like I was programmed to take this information, process it, and accept it. With time, however, people managed to pull that wire out of me, showing me their worlds, which included this friend group. However, what scared me most was when I began to look back at my life, the bits and parts that I shut out and locked behind bars. Another thing that had me looking back at religion was the inappropriate topics discussed. Although with good fun, my parents would see it being shameless and use it as a justification of why non-Muslims are no good and will only bring you astray. Then, there was the fear of not seeing them in the hereafter haunting me again. There was the fear that I was doing the wrong thing, caring for people who actually made me feel happy, who actually made me feel like I belonged, who actually made me feel accepted and view the world through a different lens. They actually got me to laugh. They actually showed me how to feel. They were there for me and didn't know I was actually dying slowly. Even though their morbid humor bothered me at first after dealing with so many suicidal cases throughout my life, I couldn't help but accept their flaws in humanity. It had me realizing I could do the same with Muslims, accepting their flaws. I was so busy trying to think about being friends with someone who was more pious than I, believing that befriending such a person would bring me peace, but these people, they had a whole other magic to them. They encouraged me to do things I would usually berate myself for, like singing, laughing, enjoying my life, opening my mind, and everything. Except this started to become a distraction rather than relief. Religion tried to come back when my uncle died, reminding me of everything I was taught. My grades showed the effect these friends had, religion pointing to the source of the issue, and it was those friends. Why it was painful to leave was because I was so attached to them, which had me reflecting to all the past friendships, noticing a similar pattern, and telling myself I'm doing the wrong thing. I didn't cry when I said I had to take a break, but hearing them cry tore something inside of me. This was unusual to them and out of nowhere, while this whole friendship was unusual to me and out of nowhere. I realized while taking a break that I didn't know myself anymore, that I had a lot of soul searching to do. I had to find happiness in solitude. I had to understand what was wrong with me. I had to understand why I felt so trapped, and if it was really because of friends, or if it was from another source. Because if anything, talking to friends felt freeing, while being at home entrapped me. Over time, I started researching, reflecting, and realizing a whole lot of shit. I looked at the mirror and saw someone who wasn't me, but then I looked again and realized it was. It was that me that I trapped behind bars for religion and for my parents. It was that me who cared for others deeply, who found happiness with socializing and learning about others, who loved many, who found solace in doing things without expecting anything in return, who wanted to make the most of life, who loved music, who wanted to travel and explore. Not just the world, but me, myself. That me at first would make me sick and disgusted, but this time I realized I was doing something harmful. I finally opened my eyes and realized I'm strapped to this chair. Wires entangled around me pierced into my skin, connecting to the empty barren walls with the flickering TV in front of me, reminding me of what I needed to remember when I got so happy or found joy in life. All in darkness. I was breathing heavily, struggling to move. I realized the one who strapped me down, trapped in gauntlets and chains and wires, were not my friends, but my family and the beliefs they carried. And that is the end. How it took me so long to realize that without taking into regards the number of times I've said parents when people ask to do something is beyond me. Just understand that whatever interaction I've had with you, with all my friends, it was genuine and was done so by the person I'd usually lock away. It was a constant battle, but it's not the end of the battle. Honestly, it has a lot of ties with religion and family. I'm not sure what to talk about next. I'd probably go with a simple topic next episode, or probably a short episode, I don't know. In regards of meetups or something simple, because, this is just getting mad deep. I don't want to go too deep, but unless you guys are okay with that, I don't mind. Furthermore, I am willing to hear your stories, your suggestions, and all the sort. If you have any questions in regards to my faith, I do suggest you do not ask. And if you do follow this faith, please do not. Just don't. If you are one of those apologetics who will be like, you were misled, or your parents are wrong, or any of that, please just stop. You don't know the full story, and I really suggest you don't try at all with me. It's not because I am closed-minded or whatever, but it's because right now I'm not in the position to hear all these things. Right now, I just need to understand myself and find myself. Anyway, if you have any suggestions, feel free to put that in the comment section below, along with any recommendations, comments, thoughts, and any related stories. I am so willing to read. And furthermore, please do leave a like, and please do subscribe. You don't have to. Actually, you don't have to subscribe. I'm not going to force you, because I don't know how long I'll be doing these videos. Apparently, a lot of people actually like these, which is kind of surprising, and I think you guys are just watching this out of pity. But if you're actually enjoying these, then dang, thank you. Anyway, yeah, I'll have to think about what the next episode is going to be about, because, I didn't think this far. I didn't think I'd get this far already. So, give me some time, fam. I'll try to cook up something for you. I'm a master cook. No, I'm not. Anyway, I think that should be all. Thank you all for listening and watching. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, night, dusk, twilight, whatever the time may be. Please, if it is late at night, go to sleep. Please, if it is daytime, go do something better in your life. No, forget that. If it is night, yeah, go to sleep. That should be all.